Imagine for a moment, you're a CEO, maybe a founder, or perhaps you're an investor, and you're constantly thinking about it. How do you build? How do you scale? And crucially, how do you protect your business?
Right, you're always searching for that edge, that competitive advantage.
Exactly, that moat around your company that makes it really tough for rivals to breach. Now, we often think about these moats in, pretty modern, abstract ways.
Sure, things like brand loyalty or network effects, maybe proprietary tech.
Right. But what if I told you there was this historical figure whose life literally involved building moats, like physical ones, in the dirt for military advantage?
Okay.
And his story, it turns out, offers these profound, timeless lessons for the modern business world, even for you.
That's quite a hook. So who are we talking about?
Today, we're doing a deep dive into the incredible life of Tadeusz Kościuszko. He was an 18th century Polish engineering and military hero, just an extraordinary figure.
Kościuszko, yes. Involved in both the American Revolution and the Polish fight for independence. A really remarkable journey.
Exactly. And we're going to trace that journey, look at his strategic decisions, even his personal values, and see how they connect really powerfully with the foundations of business strategy, specifically Hamilton Helmer's work, Seven Powers.
That's a great framework. So we're using Helmer's Seven Powers lens to understand Kościuszko's strategic moves.
That's the plan. Our mission today is to pull out those vital insights, helping you understand not just what Kościuszko did, but why his actions, even centuries ago, offer this kind of shortcut to understanding how to build durable competitive advantages in your world today.
So how a guy digging ditches and building forts can teach us about, say, branding or counter-positioning.
You got it. And process power, too. This isn't just a history lesson. Think of it as a masterclass in strategic thinking, drawn from a really unexpected source. Let's dig in. So if we want to get inside Kościuszko's strategic mind, we really have to start at the beginning, his formative years. He was born in 1746 into the landed gentry in Poland.
Okay, so relatively privileged background for the time.
Yes, but crucially, he was apparently very aware of the harsh reality surrounding him, particularly serfdom. The vast majority of people essentially tied to the land, their lives controlled by masters.
And that early awareness, that exposure to inequality, you think that shaped him?
Profoundly, it seems. It fueled this lifelong commitment to liberty, not just for the elite, but for everyone. We'll see that theme again and again.
Interesting. And his education, that must have played a key role in his later engineering skills.
Absolutely. He went to the night school in Warsaw, a military academy, and that's where his knack for math really stood out. Engineering, artillery, he just got it.
So he had a natural aptitude.
He excelled, so much so that he actually became an instructor there after graduating. It wasn't just about learning. He could master complex stuff and then teach it effectively. That practical applied science foundation was just critical later on.
Right, you can see how that would be invaluable.
And it wasn't just about skills, it was about strategy, even early on. Poland in the 1770s, a total mess. On the brink of civil war, neighbors like Russia closing in.
A very unstable environment.
Totally. And Kościuszko made this incredibly shrewd decision. He decided to avoid the internal conflict, which he saw as a lost cause at that point. Instead, he looked abroad.
To get more skills? Or just get out?
Both, really. He went to Paris for further studies, the intellectual hub of Europe then. And this wasn't just a gap year, it was a serious investment. Funded by Prince Czartoryski, 500 ducats. A lot of money.
Wow. So a calculated move.
Definitely. He even wrote about wanting to distinguish myself or end my misery in America. He saw it as a place where other Poles, like Pulaski, had gone. It shows ambition, foresight, and the strategic approach positioning himself in an emerging dynamic place rather than a collapsing one.
That's a powerful lesson right there for anyone thinking about careers or even business strategy. Don't cling to the sinking ship, right? Invest in yourself and find the growth market.
Exactly. And his arrival in Philadelphia in 1776 shows that proactive mindset. He actively sought out Benjamin Franklin.
Wow, straight to the top.
Yep. And he expected like a formal exam, like back in Europe. He was ready to prove his value, his expertise.
He wasn't just hoping for a handout.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And the timing was perfect, even if they didn't know his name yet. George Washington was already asking for an eminent French engineer. That was the term to scope out defenses for Philadelphia.
So the need was already there.
Yeah.
They just didn't know Kościuszko was the answer.
Precisely. It highlights this immediate, critical demand for his specialized skills, his resource. It was scarce and incredibly valuable, and that immediate value, that indispensability, brings us straight to one of Hamilton Helmer's 7 powers. Kosciuszko's situation perfectly illustrates the concept of a cornered resource.
Okay, power number 6. Let's break that down. What exactly is a cornered resource, according to Helmer?
So Helmer defines it as a business whose sustained high returns come from preferential access to a rare and valuable asset, something competitors just can't easily get their hands on.
And the benefit for the business.
You can charge higher prices, maybe lower your costs, or create a better product simply because you have this unique access.
Right. And the barrier. What stops others from getting it?
It can range. Could
Yeah.
be legal stuff like patents or property rights, or it could be more intangible, like retaining key talent with unique skills, like Kościuszko himself.
So his specific engineering talent, especially in fortifications, was the cornered resource for the Continental Army.
Absolutely. There were very few people around with his specific mix of math skills, practical experience, and strategic vision for building defenses against the British. He wasn't just another officer, he was a specialist in a critical, underserved field.
Yeah, that makes sense. And a modern example, what does that look like today?
Think about a company like TSMC, the semiconductor giant. Their edge comes from these incredibly complex proprietary manufacturing processes and know-how that others find almost impossible to replicate. Their engineers, their specific techniques, that's a cornered resource.
Or maybe a specialized research lab with exclusive rights to a breakthrough medical discovery.
Exactly. Or even a small consulting firm with truly unique expertise in a tiny niche. Their knowledge is the resource. So for you listening, the question is, what are the scarce talents, the unique processes, the proprietary knowledge within your organization that maybe aren't fully recognized or protected yet?
Identifying those unseen assets before a competitor does or before a crisis hits. That's key.
And Kościuszko quickly proved the value of his cornered resource. Look at the Saratoga campaign in 1777, a real turning point in the war.
Right, and his contribution there was massive. General Gates was in command.
Yes, Horatio Gates. Not exactly known for his battlefield brilliance, more for political maneuvering. And his initial camp choice at Stillwater, tactically disastrous.
How so?
It was commanded by hills all around it, wide open meadows. It is completely indefensible.
Oh dear, that sounds like basic stuff he missed.
It was, and Kościuszko saw it immediately. He famously told Colonel Morgan Lewis, pointing it out, "From yonder hill on the left, your encampment may be cannoned by the enemy, or from that on our right, they may take aim at your shoe buckles."
Huh. Aim at your shoe buckles. That's brilliant. So direct.
Isn't it crystal clear? And he didn't just point it out, he fixed it. He worked tirelessly to fortify Bemis Heights, turning that weak spot into an almost impenetrable position. Redoubts, barriers, trenches.
Making it impossible for Burgoyne's redcoats to attack head-on.
Exactly. It forced them into ambushes, contributed directly to the American win at Freeman's Farm, and ultimately the British surrender at Saratoga. His expertise literally reshaped the battlefield.
Incredible. And did he get the credit? I know Gates was ambitious.
Well, Getty definitely tried to hog the limelight. He got a gold medal from Congress. But Washington knew. He recognized Kościuszko's crucial contribution later on. The real value shone through, despite the politics. From Saratoga, his influence just grew. And West Point, that became the absolute peak of his work, demonstrating another of Helmer's powers, process power.
Okay, power 7. Let's define that one. How does Helmer describe process power?
Yeah. Process power is when a company's unique organization and set of activities allow it to produce superior products or operate at lower costs in a way that competitors can only match through a really long, sustained effort.
So it's about the how, the system being the advantage.
Precisely. The benefit is better products or lower costs. And the barrier, which Helmer calls hysteresis, is the sheer time and investment needed to build that complex process. It's hard to copy quickly.
Right, it's embedded, not just written down.
And West Point is a prime example. The conditions there were just atrocious during construction.
I can imagine. Hudson Valley winters.
2 feet of snow sometimes, troops lacking shelter, constant shortages of tools, materials. Major Humphreys compared it to the Israelites in Egypt who were ordered to make brick without straw.
Wow. Yet Kościuszko got it done.
He did. Through meticulous planning, relentless oversight, and this systematic approach, he built Fort Putnam, strategically placed higher than Fort Arnold for crossfire. Bomb-proof shelters, cisterns for water, stone walls, defenses on Constitution Island.
It sounds incredibly complex and detailed.
Oh, it was. He even ordered 50 barrels of tar to grease the logs of that massive chain across the Hudson.
The chain to stop British ships. Why tar?
To prevent it from freezing solid and breaking in the winter. Just that level of foresight and detail, it was a whole integrated system.
And Washington recognized this, despite maybe some professional jealousy from other engineers.
Yeah, there were some critics, apparently, but Washington praised his work, famously calling him not the worst of engineer, which, from Washington, was high praise. It was a repeatable, effective system built under extreme duress.
It really makes you think of modern examples like Toyota's production system, TPS.
That's a perfect comparison. Everyone knows about TPS. You can read books on it, tour the factories.
But replicating it, so hard, because it's not just a checklist. It's embedded in the culture, built over decades. That's the hysteresis.
Exactly. For your business, it means process power isn't just about efficiency charts. It's about building an operational core that works even when things get tough, when resources are tight. That's hard for competitors to copy. Think Amazon's logistics, decades of refinement.
And the value of Kościuszko's West Point process was dramatically highlighted by Benedict Arnold, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Arnold's treachery. When he commanded West Point, he tried to sell the entire set of plans and strategies, Kościuszko's meticulous work, to the British.
He knew exactly what the crown jewels were.
He did. He even tried to weaken specific points Kościuszko designed, ordering a link removed from the Hudson chain, reducing troops at key redoubts like Number 4 on Rocky Hill. He was literally trying to sell the keys to the fortress, undermining the process.
It just underscores how valuable that whole defensive system was.
And just a little personal touch here. During all this intense work, Kościuszko actually created this beautiful, intricate garden in a secluded valley at West Point.
A garden amidst building fortifications.
Yeah. With a curious water fountain with jets and cascades. He even lowered soil down cliffs with ropes to plant flowers. It just shows this meticulous nature, this dedication to detail and order extended beyond just the military work.
That's fascinating. It gives you a glimpse of the man behind the engineer.
Then, moving south for the Southern Campaign, he continued to show adaptability. He worked under General Nathaniel Greene,
Who, unlike Gates, actually appreciated his expertise, right?
Definitely. Kościuszko was constantly scouting, designing defenses in really tough spots. Cheraw Hill, Halifax, often with makeshift tools and few resources. But his process adapted.
And his unit was effective in other ways, too.
Very. They were great at ambushing British patrols, disrupting supply lines, capturing horses, showing that operational efficiency even when stretched thin, adapting the process to the situation. Okay, so we've seen his engineering brilliance, his process mastery, but let's shift focus a bit to something maybe even more fundamental. His moral compass. This, I think, built him an incredibly powerful and lasting brand.
Ah, yes. Helmer's Power 5. This is crucial. How does Helmer define brand power?
Brand power is when a business gets a higher perceived value for what might be an objectively identical product or service, simply because of the historical information, the reputation associated with them.
So it's about trust and perception built over time.
Exactly. The benefit is you can often charge more because people perceive higher quality or feel less uncertain or just have an emotional connection. And the barrier for competitors, it takes a long time and consistent action to build that kind of trust. You can't just buy it overnight.
In Kościuszko's brand, you're saying it was built on his values, like his stance on liberty and equality.
Absolutely. His commitment transcended borders and the norms of his day. His anti-slavery stance is probably the most powerful example. He called slavery cursed by all enlightened nations.
And this wasn't just talk.
Not at all. It was consistent. From his reaction to Lord Dunmore offering freedom to slaves who joined the British way back in '75, right through to his final will.
Which is pretty remarkable for a prominent military figure of that era.
Think about this. He deliberately chose to visit General Gates after Gates had freed his own slaves in 1790. He didn't go visit Washington at Mount Vernon, despite Washington's admiration for him, because Washington still held slaves.
Wow. That's putting principles above connections, above power.
Totally. And his will. Dedicating his American funds to free and educate slaves, including Thomas Jefferson's. That was radical. One source even calls it an unwritten chapter in American history, suggesting if it had been followed, well, things might have been very different regarding the Civil War and ongoing racial issues.
That's a powerful thought. So his actions, consistently demonstrating these values, created this perception.
Yes. People thronged to see their hero when he returned to America. It wasn't just military fame, it was respect for who he was and what he consistently stood for. That's brand.
And modern examples, we mentioned Apple earlier. Their brand commands a premium.
Right, or Tiffany & Co. People buy used Tiffany boxes. Why? Because the brand consistently signifies luxury, quality, celebration for over a century. It's built trust. So for you listening, your brand isn't just your logo. It's the sum of every experience, every value projected, every promise kept over time.
And this commitment wasn't just an American thing for Kościuszko. He took it back to Poland.
Absolutely. He was deeply frustrated by serfdom there, saying people needed permission from their master even to take a breath. And he didn't just complain, he actively tried to end forced labor on his own family lands, which was complicated legally and financially.
So he was an activist back home, too.
Definitely. He loved American Republican ideals and tried to persuade Polish nobles towards democracy. He was inspired by things like the anonymous letters, which turned out to be by Hugon Kolente calling for an end to serfdom and class distinctions.
And this willingness to fight for the common person, combined with his modesty, that built his reputation.
Immensely. He wasn't seen as ambitious for personal power, which earned him incredible devotion across Polish society. His brand was authentic. And this widespread support, this vision for a new Poland, it perfectly sets up two more of Helmer's powers: counterpositioning and network economies.
Okay, let's tackle counterpositioning first. Power number 3. What's the core idea there?
Counterpositioning is when a business adopts a new, superior business model that the established players, the incumbents, simply cannot copy without hurting their existing business. Cannibalization is the key fear for them.
Right, so they're trapped by their own success in the old model.
Exactly. The benefit for the disruptor is lower costs or a better product. And the barrier for the incumbent is that self-cannibalization.
And how does this apply to Kościuszko in Poland?
The Polish Constitution of May 3rd, 1791, it was a massive act of counterpositioning, hailed as offering perfect and entire liberty, praised in France, Britain, the U.S. Even with its initial limits for peasants and Jews, it was a radical break.
A break from what exactly?
From the old Polish system, the powerful nobles, the paralyzing liberum veto in parliament. It was a direct challenge to that internal aristocratic structure and to the influence of neighboring absolute monarchies, Russia, Prussia, Austria, who preferred Poland weak and divided.
Ah, I see. So those incumbents, the old Polish nobles or the foreign kings, couldn't adopt these liberal reforms themselves.
Absolutely not. It would destroy their own power bases. The Prussian king, for example, explicitly worried that if Polish townspeople got more rights, his own workers might leave Prussia for a freer Poland. It would cannibalize his control.
That's a perfect illustration. It explains why disruption often comes from outsiders, like Vanguard with low-cost index funds shaking up traditional finance.
Or Netflix versus Blockbuster. Netflix's subscription model killed Blockbuster's reliance on late fees. Blockbuster couldn't copy it without killing its main revenue stream.
Kodak and digital cameras is another classic example. They invented it but couldn't fully embrace it because it threatened their film business.
Exactly. So the May 3rd Constitution was the counter-positioning strategy. And the support it generated, Kościuszko's ability to bring diverse groups together behind it, that's where network economies come in.
Okay, power number 2. Network economies. Define that one for us.
This happens when the value a customer gets from a product or service increases as more people use it. Think social media or payment platforms.
Right, the more users, the more valuable it becomes for everyone.
Precisely. The benefit is you can potentially charge more or monetize better because the network itself adds value. And the barrier for competitors, it's really hard to lure users away from a large established network to a smaller, less valuable one.
So how did Kościuszko's movement demonstrate this?
His movement gained strength and legitimacy as more varied groups joined. You had the Black March of the Burghers in Warsaw, thousands demanding rights inspired by the French Revolution. That showed grassroots momentum.
A visible increase in the user base.
Yep, exactly. And then the really astonishing part. Foreign observers were stunned to see armed Jews joining the uprising.
That was unprecedented, wasn't it?
Totally. It was the first Jewish military unit under its own banner since biblical times. A Jewish merchant, Burek Koselewicz, inspired by Kościuszko's ideals, asked if they could form a cavalry regiment.
And Kościuszko agreed.
He was thrilled, appointed Koselewicz a colonel, gave them funds. It was even announced in the government gazette emphasizing the sanctity of our cause that transcended different religions and traditions. Incredibly inclusive for the era.
Wow, so peasants, townspeople, nobles, Jews, the more groups that joined, the stronger and more legitimate the whole movement became.
Exactly, a virtuous cycle. Like Facebook, more friends join, it's more valuable to you. Or PayPal, more users, easier to send money anywhere. For your business, it's about fostering that community where each new participant adds value, making your network stickier and harder to leave. But, and this is a big but, Despite all the strategic brilliance, the moral high ground, the unity he forged, the story of Poland in this era gives us this really stark, almost heartbreaking lesson about the limits of moats.
Ah, yes. This is the sobering reality check, isn't it?
It really is. It forces us to confront that even the strongest moats built with genius, brand loyalty, network effects, process power, sometimes they just aren't enough.
Especially when faced with overwhelming external force that doesn't play by the rules or just changes the game entirely.
Kościuszko's leadership during this final desperate phase was incredible. He had these lingering wounds, right? So apparently he'd often pretend he couldn't walk during the day to fool Russian spies.
Maintaining a facade of weakness.
Yeah, but then at night, he'd be up, walking for miles, inspecting positions, just immense personal courage and resilience.
And his tactical skill was still sharp.
Oh, absolutely. Look at the Battle of Dubienka in 1792. He had maybe 5,000 Poles against 25,000 Russians.
Vastly outnumbered.
Hugely. But he inflicted such heavy casualties through smart defenses that the Russian general himself admitted they lost more men there than anywhere else in the war up to that point.
Incredible tactical win.
But strategically, the tide was just too strong. The sheer size and relentless pressure from Russia, Prussia, and eventually Austria, it was overwhelming. Despite the May 3rd Constitution, despite Kościuszko's efforts, the second partition happened in 93. More Polish land carved up.
Call into his quote about the whales eating Poland. Tragically prescient.
It was. And the final act came at Maciejosis, October 1794. Kościuszko saw the Russian armies under Fersen and the notoriously brutal Suvorov were about to combine.
Which would have been unstoppable.
Right. So he made this incredibly bold, maybe desperate gamble, strike Fersen before they could link up, trying to cut off one arm of the beast.
A high-risk, high-reward move. How did it play out?
It was a disaster. The Poles fought like lions, but they ran out of ammunition. Then the Russian infantry just charged with bayonets. It was a massacre.
Awful. And the Russians were yelling about revenge for Warsaw.
Yeah, that's for Warsaw. Utter brutality. In the chaos, Kościuszko's horse fell. He was speared twice, tried to shoot himself, but his pistol was empty. Captured, stripped, only identified later by his own captured soldiers.
A devastating end to the uprising.
And here's the ultimate gut-wrenching lesson for any leader. Despite everything Kościuszko's engineering genius, cornered resource, process power, his strategic brilliance, his moral authority, brand, his ability to unite diverse groups, network effects, his reforms, counter-positioning, despite all that, Poland was wiped off the map.
For 123 years.
Yeah.
Just ceased to exist as an independent nation.
It's the stark reality. Sometimes, no matter how well you build your moats, overwhelming external forces, geopolitical shifts, massive economic disruption, forces that don't care about your strategy, they can just crush you.
It really underscores the need to understand that bigger external landscape and recognize when the game itself changes, maybe in ways you can't control. No moat is invincible.
But even in defeat, even with Poland gone, Kościuszko's personal story, his values, his legacy, they endure. He remained true to his principles.
Right. Even in Russian prison after Maciejowice, when Tsar Gagasaga came to power after Catherine the Great died, he released Kościuszko and thousands of other Poles.
It's a surprising act of clemency.
It was. And Paul tried to win Kościuszko over, offering him a gift, 1,000 serfs, and a pension.
Serfs. To Kościuszko, how did he react?
He refused it flat out, reaffirmed his principles, basically saying he couldn't accept a gift that represented the very system he fought against, calling it forced benevolence from oppressive ministers. Even in captivity, totally consistent.
Incredible integrity. And his return to America.
Triumphant. Huge crowds welcomed him back in Philadelphia in 1797. Washington praised him for helping establish American liberties.
And his meeting with Jefferson. That led to the will, right?
Yes, in 1798.
Yeah.
He trusted Jefferson to execute his will, dedicating all his American funds as back pay, essentially to free and educate slaves, specifically including Jefferson's own, which Jefferson was uncomfortable with. Deeply uncomfortable, it seems. Making it public would have caused a huge political storm. He eventually passed the task to General Koch, an anti-slavery advocate, but due to legal issues and reluctance, it was never fully carried out as Kościuszko intended.
But the intent itself, that documented wish, speaks volumes. That source calling it an unwritten chapter that might have changed history. It's haunting.
It really is. And think about his gift to Little Turtle, the Miami chief. Those pistols.
Right. He told him, shoot dead the first man who ever comes to subjugate you or to despoil you of your country.
A universal message of resistance against oppression, his brand, his core message, applied everywhere.
And fittingly, there's that monument to him in Lafayette Park in D.C., right across from the White House, a permanent reminder.
Even in his later years, his judgment remained sharp. He saw through Napoleon, didn't he?
He did. He initially hoped Napoleon might help Poland, but quickly became disillusioned, called him the grave digger of the Republic, a despot.
Recognizing Napoleon's ambition was purely self-serving.
Exactly. He warned young Polish officers, learned strategy from him, sure, but he will not resurrect Poland. He knew Napoleon wouldn't build anything lasting for others.
And his final years, committed to charity.
Completely. Lived modestly, gave away most of his money to beggars. The story about his pony automatically stopping for paupers.
That's wonderful.
It just shows how deeply ingrained his values were. From grand strategy to small acts of kindness, it was all consistent. So we've traced this incredible life. Tadeusz Kościuszko, builder of literal moats, who gave us these powerful insights into Helmer's strategic powers. We saw his engineering as a cornered resource.
His meticulous work at West Point as process power.
His unwavering principles forging an enduring brand.
His vision for Poland demonstrating counterpositioning and uniting diverse groups creating network effects.
It's all there, yet. That tragic ending for Poland reminds us that even the best moats aren't always enough against overwhelming force.
It leaves us with a really critical question, doesn't it? For you, the listener, in your own business, your own world, are you thinking about those potentially overwhelming external forces, the ones that might render your carefully built moats irrelevant?
Beyond building your advantages day to day, how are you preparing, mentally or strategically, for the battles you might not be able to win purely through clever strategy? What does it really mean to build something truly durable, truly resilient, in a world that's fundamentally unpredictable, something to really chew on?